So back in the day, I used to use the DAT machine as a tool for resampling stuff off of the analog 24-track tape. So I would do mixdowns on the console and feed them onto digital audio tape, DAT. And so what I realized years later was that it was really smart that I did that, because you know what? Some of my tapes are actually missing for the smack stuff that I wanted to finish. And what's interesting is I was going through, I had all my DATs, as many as I could. I had them transferred a number of years ago, and I haven't listened to them. So I just started popping them up and listening to what's on here. And it's kind of fascinating, because there's smack stuff. And then there's also pre-smack stuff, also with my writing partner, Vadim. We used to be called Soil. And as Soil, we were invited into a publishing deal with EMI Publishing, which was then run by Hank Medras and his right-hand girl, Barb Seaton. So we signed that deal. We did it in haste. We didn't know anything about publishing deals. I didn't even know what a publishing deal was, and we signed it anyway. So the result is that there's all this kind of like old stuff, and I'll just play a few blasts of some of this stuff. Oboe. M1 drums. Brother, sister, and family. Woo! And talk about life. So you can hear, sorry, my battery's low. You can hear how Vadim was singing back then. He was singing in more sort of like a fake Depeche Mode kind of way, which is kind of funny. So then when we move ahead to, here, I'll play you a little bit of, this is an early version of Vacationing in America, which I still might release this version, because it's a muddy mess. But what you'll notice is that Vadim's vocals, we really changed styles, because Depeche Mode, we were told, was like, you know, don't imitate them. So we were told these things by our publisher. And so we actually, let me correct that. Under Hank Medras, Soil was fine, but he didn't think that we were going to be stars, because we didn't look cool enough or something. So then Michael McCarty came in, the great Mike McCarty of EMI Publishing. I think he's now with Olay. Anyway, I don't know who he's with, but he told us, you know, hey man, you know, because he came into EMI and took over from Hank. Hank was sent back to the States because he's a New Yorker. He came from New York to work up here. And so Mike's job, it seemed to be, was to like clean up this one-horse town and like ditch all the artists that weren't worth anything. So we were one of those artists that were like in serious question because our music wasn't hip. So I sort of took the cues from Mike McCarty, and we left that publishing deal, and then I started writing this kind of stuff. That's the new. Those are dropouts. American. You can't show me a smile beneath their hearts. You just want to leave me once again and tear a soul apart. American, who wants to be, but not today. Who wants to be, not today. That's me. That's me doing those little background things. Because I used to love the Andrews Sisters growing up. So anyway, so that's our big muddy mess. That's actually me playing a drum sample that was recorded live onto DAT. One mic through an 1176 compressor, playing the kit very carefully to make the compressor do a certain thing. And boy, did it do it. So it's a big rotten mess. But you can hear how Vadim's shifted, and he changed his voice like overnight to a whole different, like this is literally within a year of having that publishing deal and doing the kind of Depeche Mode-ish stuff, and that the kind of, singing in the back of your throat, like, to like, you don't know me, to like a sneering sound. So that's, so Vadim was, he always liked when there was a new challenge, and we did it. So I'm listening through this DAT some more, and then I'm noticing there's these chunks of audio, which you can see right here. So what I had done, and I didn't realize until I dug this DAT up, this DAT transfer up, is that that beat we just heard with the hi-hat on top, that beat is actually for the song Flutter by Bullet, which is on the Smack album, Smack Vacationing in America. So what I inadvertently have here is, if I couldn't find the master, I could actually probably rebuild the song from DAT on my DAW. And so you got the various beats, and then we got so that's the acoustic guitar part. It's like an old Yamaha classical guitar, and I just had this like drone-y thing that I kept playing, and so I sampled myself playing it, and we built this track. So these are all the stems. Great. So that was done with a Juno 106, and so it's a big open pad, and basically what we had done is programmed. We didn't really program it; we sort of played it in and then cleaned it up. But yeah, so we played in this chord progression, which Vadim played, and then I was running the mod wheel filter. So it's right. So I'm playing the mod wheel while he's playing those parts in, and then we're keeping all the filter information, cleaning up the notes. If there's a bad note or anything, we just take it out, and then have it play it back again, exactly the performance that we had done together. So it was a 2-guy thing. Now, you hear the gating. That's actually done with, I would take a signal out of the S900. It's just a sine wave that when you turn it on, it's like you can press the playback button, and it plays a C3. Ooh, it plays a single sine wave tone. So I would program that tone so that it's like, it doesn't have a lot of low frequency data, so that it's faster when it turns off and when it turns on. So that is a pattern sent to a separate noise gate by the company Drummer. We had a bank of it would look something like this size, and it'd be a bank of 4 noise gates along a rack unit this size, right? And so at the back, you could put a 1/4-inch gate trigger in at the back, and anything you fed it, and then you set the gate threshold, the attack and the release times. And so so then we did another performance with the gate going while printing it onto the 24 track. So it's burned onto the 24 track like that. Now, Flutter by Bullet, it was a nonsensical song, but it was just a feel-good vibe. It has this elegant nostalgia. There's acoustic instruments sampled, but there's also synths. There's there's an 808 style beat with an actual sample of me playing drums. So that beat sort of became this, the fuel for this song, as well as the acoustic guitar part. Now, as a side note, and it's I'm not offended or anything, but somebody at CFNY had stolen a sample of my guitar playing, and they used it as the theme for their indie hour for like 3 years before I even noticed. And it was a friend noticed and said, "Hey, that's your song? That's your song on the." So I called up CFNY and I was like, "Hey, you're using my song," and whoever was there figured out who I was, and they hung up. And the next time I heard that indie hour broadcast, which happened at like 1 in the afternoon or something, it was like 11 or 1, and suddenly my piece was gone, and there was a part of me that was like sad that it was gone, because it represented my contribution to Canadian modern music. That's what it really represented to me. So I should have just shut the fuck up and let them use it. And honestly, I love CFNY. I love The Edge. They've always played my productions, and especially Martin Streak, may he rest in peace. There was a guy so dedicated to the station that when they let him go, I think he fell into a deep depression. That's a sad story. Had he stuck around, I'm sure good things would have happened for him, but he didn't. And that's sad. Now, Martin, whenever Martin's show was on, I would hear a 3-pack of Matt DeMatteo productions. And sometimes it was stuff that I had just engineered, but it was pretty clear that it was stuff that I had done at the time, usually with Chris Wardman. So they'd play Rusty, they'd play Big Wreck, Chris Wardman introduced me to Big Wreck. Now, if you don't know who Chris Wardman is, he's a very important Canadian music figure, because he was the guitar player and co-writer for the band Blue Peter. And they've sadly lost their singer fairly recently. So that is definitely felt. Anyway, Chris was my top mentor. Now, I met Chris right around the time that I decided to make this record. So I was doing this, and also Chris found out about Present Sound in Toronto, which was at 72 Stafford Street, rear entrance, which is where the old Reaction was in the same space. So when Reaction moved a couple of years later, a couple of the older partners, Daryl and Roby, went back to the old location. And when I left the new Reaction, which I did to pursue artistic things, but then I didn't end up doing that. When I was wandering around, wondering what to do with myself, wasn't feeling particularly inspired, didn't have really like a place to be. And I think that's important in life, is for any person, is a place to be. When you love a workplace, then you always show up, you always keep it tidy, and make the best of every day. And then when you get home, you're tired, you're satisfied. So these are the things that were important in life. So when I discovered that two of the old Reaction partners who had split off earlier had gone back to the old location, I bumped into one of their oldest partners, a guy named Brendan Emmanuel. Brendan was actually an excellent guitar player. He had the Hendrix thing like pretty seriously down. So I bumped into him serendipitously at it was outside of Myers Deli, which was at King and University area in Toronto. And so we saw each other. It was like, "Hey, fuck, how are you, bud?" And he said, "Hey, man, Daryl and Roby, they're at the old studio. You got to go, man. You got to go check it out." And I was like, "Really?" So I kind of raced over there and saw the guys. They were happy to see me. I was happy to see them. And they were like, "Hey, man, like, we're here. You should come work here." And I was like, "That would be my pleasure." So I took over management as well as soldering patch bays into the Neve console that Daryl had just purchased. The Neve 8014, the infamous Neve that made all those great records. Big Sugar, 500 Pounds was done on it. Hemivision was done on it. Big Wreck and Loving Memory, Rusty Fluke, Rusty's Out of Their Heads, Surrender Dorothy was done there on that desk. So all of this great stuff, and plus the stuff I was doing. Coming from an SSL studio, I found the Neve, which I hadn't tried before until that time. I found the Neve to be very crude, but I also found that I was getting expected results quickly using that piece of equipment and the tape machine. And we had one sampler for the longest time, and it was an S900. What that means is that it would sample at 44.1 16-bit mono for up to 9 seconds, and that's all you got. so anyway, so I made all this crazy music and made these DAT transfers, which I'm finding now, I must have been really smart, because now I have stems of some of the material that actually no longer exists. I think I'm missing 2 songs from the album, but I'm going to do some cool stuff with the existing mixes. You'll be surprised. It's going to be very cool. So I have a whole new version of the title track. I'm starting a new version of the song Elemental, which is the song about how Mother Nature is getting back at us. Thus, we were also concerned about climate change back then. And of course, we're concerned about it, and that concern continues. And, but I don't put it into my music anymore for a variety of reasons. Anyway, wow. Woo. You know what that is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, kick. Flying away. Woo! There it is. There's my wacky percussion. Can't believe it. This is great. So any song that I'm missing, I seem to have a digital stem of, which was a mix down from 24 track on that Neve, transferred onto DAT. So no additional tape hiss, but obviously the limitations of 44.1 16-bit or 48 kilohertz 16-bit. So it's always the question of the bit rate, but I mean, you'll notice it sounds pretty fucking good. So yeah, this is holy discovery. So great news, guys. It's going to be quite a bit of work, but I'm thinking that 2 of the songs on the Smack record that I want to readdress and revisit, and maybe even do some overdubs. We'll see. Maybe clean a few things up and try to say what I meant without losing the vibe. Don't forget that, guys. Try not to lose the vibe. If you already had a good vibe, but you're fixing up some older material, try to keep the vibe alive. Whatever that vibe is, you'll know, even if you do new overdubs, you'll know when it's pulling it away from its original emotional intent. Anyway, so we'll get more into that and other things at a later time. Goodbye.